started working there about 5 years ago, and I initially was working in the call center. And I've worked every shift in the call center, but I ended up working, I think, second or third shift. Oh no, I was working overnights. I worked overnights in the call center. And then I got a job hosting. It depends on if I'm working by myself or if I'm working with somebody else. If I'm with somebody else, it'll be usually in the evenings or early morning, but if I'm by myself, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be in the middle of the night. So generally speaking, a window between midnight to 8 in the morning. For the most part, the overnights are nice. I tend to be kind of a night owl anyway, but it can get really stressful and hard when you have an overnight shift and you only have a couple of hours to sleep and then you come back and do a show that same day. So sometimes you have 2 shows in the same day, or it feels like one big long day. So you don't really get back to sleep. There are some weeks when I work a couple of days, I have a couple of days off, and there are some weeks where I literally don't have a day off for 9, 10, 11 days, and I might have a couple hours window or an 8-hour window, but usually I just have blocks of time available as opposed to full days. I have a tendency to smoke every now and again, not as a habit, but I definitely notice that I do so more if I have crazy shifts or life is crazy. The shows where I've not been very awake, I might go out and have a cigarette before the show. Whereas if it's a daytime show, I would never even think of it. It wouldn't faze me one way or the other. So yeah, I think you do get a jolt of energy maybe from the nicotine. I think part of it does have to do with stress too, because it's stressful being awake all night and sleeping all day. I usually don't sleep in full blocks. I usually just have naps just whenever I can get them. So like tonight I'm going to go in and work from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. So around 11 I'll lay down and maybe get 2 to 3 hours of sleep if I can fall asleep. But if not, at least I get some rest. And then when I get off work at 8 in the morning, I might try to take another small nap. So it's basically little increments of time that you get to sleep, as opposed to you lay down and sleep for 8 or 9 hours. It's just 3 hours here, maybe another 2, an hour and a half cat nap if I can fit it in. And so it's just little bursts. I don't feel as well as I normally do if I'm sleeping on a regular basis. I'm more susceptible to sore throats or just general fatigue, and I notice that I'm more tired all the time because you never really feel rested. So basically when I do get time off, all I want to do is just lay around and do nothing. I've definitely gained weight since I've worked shifts all over the place, and it hasn't fluctuated drastically, but I've definitely had to watch myself, because when you sleep, you know, sporadically, if you get off work at 4 in the morning but you're famished, you'll stop and have breakfast, and then next thing you know you're exhausted, so you go straight to bed. So it's like even the food doesn't react with your body properly, because sometimes you'll eat and then go straight to sleep, or be awake for 5 or 6 hours and not eat anything and then gorge yourself the rest of the night. It's basically whenever you can fit food in, so it doesn't become a breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of a pattern. I'm sure my husband could attest to the fact that I've been very moody lately, and the more my schedule changes, the more that's true. Depression, yeah, I could argue that. Definite downs. I've been attributing it to bad weather, but now that you tell me that, that makes a lot more sense. That, and again, it probably has to do with rest or eating, or even just something as simple as you just don't see sunlight sometimes. I mean, this afternoon I woke up at 2:30 in the afternoon, so it's like my window of time in the sun was very, very short, and I'll be awake all of the night and go to sleep when the sun comes back out again. So I think my biggest complaint about working overnights is that you feel so lonesome. My husband is asleep when I'm awake, and I'm awake when he's asleep, so we're completely opposite in schedule. And then as far as my friends, they're all, none of them are really nocturnal like I am, and so you just get kind of lonesome. You can watch TV, you can go on the internet, but there's not really anybody you can talk to, or you can't call somebody at 3 or 4 in the morning and say, hey, come over, let's hang out, so I definitely feel isolated in that regard, especially extracurricular. I see people at work, obviously, but definitely in the marital bliss arena of things, it's caused a big strain. So my husband and I have to actually block out time to spend together, and I have to put him in my schedule because we just don't see each other. And if we do, it's just little fleeting moments. So I'll come home at 6 in the morning and he's getting up to go to work, so it'll be like, bye, I'm off to work, bye, I'm back from work, and I'm going to bed, and that's it. So yeah, there's a definite stress. And even something like seeing my family who lives in town, I never get a chance to see them because again, I can't really call my mom in the middle of the night and ask her out to coffee. So it makes it difficult when you're tired or sleeping or getting ready to sleep during the day when people want to see you. I've wrecked my car coming home from work once before, gotten a head-on collision, and I don't know that fatigue necessarily, although could have had something to do with it in my reaction time, but yeah, it's difficult, but I live pretty close to home, and generally after a show you're pretty energized and excited, so you have that little window of a burst of energy to get yourself home safely. But I've noticed, like especially in shows, if I don't get sleep before the show, I'll kind of be off my game. I can't form cohesive sentences, and I have a hard time speaking or performing to my full level because I'm just tired. And the problem is sometimes you have to force yourself to go to sleep at a time that you normally wouldn't, you know, so you get tired right about the time you're supposed to be the most awake and vice versa. So it's difficult switching back and forth from day to night. My addiction to caffeine began because I would just have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 plus cups of coffee throughout the night, especially when I first started the overnight shift at the call center. It was like 11 p.m. to 7 in the morning. And by 4, 5, 6 in the morning, your body just starts to crash and you can't take it. So I would just keep chugging more and more coffee. And I think that's one of the hard things too, is that you become dependent on things like caffeine that normally could be something enjoyable. All of a sudden, you know, you have to have your fix. If you don't have your 10 cups of coffee before work, you won't be able to make it. So yeah, I definitely struggled getting into a night shift. I would like to have a family at some point in time when my schedule is more stable. And yeah, it would affect it tremendously. Although there are some couples I know that work day and night, the husband and the wife, and then they swap off, you know, watching the baby, and they can work to that advantage. But ideally, I'd like to be able to spend time with my child and not, you know, not be working in the middle of the night and be able to be on a better set routine. And I think you can work a late shift and not necessarily be a complete vampire. I mean, that's how I feel I am, you know, it's literally in the middle of the night, so you just sleep the day away. And so I think it'd be easier if it were late night, not overnight.